Hi, I'm Angie and welcome to Dexibit. Today I'm going to take you through a quick tour and demo of our product at work so you can get an idea of what it will feel like in your visitor attraction. So first up, what's happening behind the scenes? Dexibit is a data analytics platform for visitor attractions, so both cultural institutions like museums and galleries, zoos, parks, and aquariums, through to commercial attractions like theme parks and stadiums. And what it does is it taps into all of your various source systems and hardware. So typically that might be things like footfall counters, cameras, ticketing systems, point of sale systems for things like your shop, your cafe, your parking. It might be your CRM where you keep your members or your customer database. It might be reviews you get on social media. It might be web and app and social itself. We provide some of our own data feeds, like, for example, the weather, or even if you have your own data warehouse or data lake, we might be tapping directly into that as well as those source systems. And this scope will differ slightly depending on the business model of your location. It might differ depending on your architecture of your technology strategy, and it might differ as well if you've got lots of locations. Some of those locations might have different scope or systems within them. And what we do is we integrate with all of that source data, pull it all up into the cloud, and organize it in a data automation platform where we will transform and clean it up, get it nicely grouped, labeled, etc., organized, ready for business use. And if you don't have your own data warehouse, at that point, we will be providing a data warehouse of sorts for you. And this is the end result. So this is what your users would see. So typically a stakeholder group would be something like visitor services, who might be using this data for general operations, things like rostering and staffing. It might be marketing, looking at where they're advertising or the effectiveness of different campaigns. It might be public programming, scheduling of exhibitions and events, and sort of doing retros and tracking how they're going. It might be your membership and advancement groups, might be commercial around retail, around cafe, etc. Maybe some of your third parties involved in that. Finance, you'll be looking at goal setting and tracking and reporting, maybe communications in terms of external affairs, if those numbers have been reported to the public or to shareholders or to government, or perhaps out in your annual reports. And then, of course, your executive team sitting across the top there. So really, Dexibit is about democratizing data to help predict and analyze visitor behavior across all of those different groups, regardless of data confidence. So it's very much designed as a platform for the beginner data user as much as it is for the advanced data user as well. I'm going to take you on a really quick tour today just to give you the highlights, a feel for the user experience and what Dexibit can do. So when you log into Dexibit, you'll go to login.dexibit.com. Dexibit is a software as a service. It loads in your browser and you can have unlimited internal user invites, which is really exciting. It's very much about democratizing data, so getting as many people from your team on it as possible, not like a sort of vanilla reporting tool that you might have just one license for a business analyst sitting in a corner office doing all the reports for all of the people with a big backlog of work out their door. This is very much something that you put in the hands of all of your teams and all of your staff, from the front door to the boardroom and every department, to give everyone equal access to data. What we're looking at here is what the user sees. So once all of that data has come through, and if you can imagine, in my pretend visitor attraction, I'm down in Antarctica of all places, and I have a group of different attractions. Actually, I've got 5 or 6 of them. And you can see here their visitation data that's coming together on this dashboard. And you can see here I've assigned short codes to these because you'll probably find with your own visitor attractions, sometimes they have really long-winded names. And so, for example, Ice World, I want to shorten to IW, and I've got sort of the Antarctica International Attraction and Tourism Group, for example. I've shortened that down to AIAT. But this is one of the great things that Dexibit does. If you have multiple locations, it's really great at that sort of multi-tenancy experience of having lots of different locations, having different sub-accounts to manage data privileges and accesses for different users in different locations, localizing for those users so that somebody who might be opening data up in Hong Kong will receive sort of local currency, a metric system, versus somebody opening it up in, say, US, where they'll be wanting to see their currency and metric system. So handling all of these sorts of things behind the scenes, automatically part of Dexibit, a really nice way of how it works with multiple locations. And so with Dexibit, you've got the ability to create and share as many dashboards as you like. And one of the tenets that we're really big about, one of our first principles, is that we don't try and create like one dashboard to rule them all, one big dashboard where everybody's going to try and negotiate and agree on how high level or detailed it's going to be. And that becomes a really drawn out design process and nobody's really happy with the end result. Instead, in Dexibit, you have as many dashboards as you like. And by default, each one of these dashboards is private, that only you will see it. And then you can choose which dashboards you're going to share with others and which dashboards you're going to convert into a scheduled automated report. So it gives you the space as a user. You can't break anything. You can't necessarily have others seeing your work if you're not happy to. So it's very purposeful and creating a safe space for users to explore data on their own time. So this is an example of one of those sample dashboards where I've got lots of data from different locations. I've sort of compiled, contrasted it, and compared it in different ways for my different locations and groups of. So to give you an idea of what it's like to create one of those dashboards, it's really easy. Follow me along with this. You click on this hamburger menu here, stacked up there and next to my dashboard title, then on the plus button, and bang, we've got a brand new dashboard. We can start off by choosing a location that we want to work with. If we've got multiple locations, if you're in a single venue, this will just be automatic. And then with a date range that we want to work with. And this date range selector is actually incredibly powerful. You can choose between fixed dates, like I'm interested in this year, or this particular period in February when I had a campaign on perhaps, or you can choose a relative date. So I always want this dashboard to show me this month to date, for example. Now this is really useful. Let me choose quarter to date. This is really useful when you're combining this with automated reporting, because that way I can say, I want my report to be scheduled out, to go out every, let's say, Monday, I've got a management meeting, and maybe Friday we do a quick retrospective, and I want it to go out at 8 a.m. This will default to your local time wherever you are. And if I'm combining this with those relative dates, I might be looking at this week to date, and maybe this week remaining, this month to date, this month remaining, this quarter to date, this quarter remaining. It just gives me the ability to have these reports fully automated, so I don't have to go in and always be changing my visualizations and things. So really powerful little feature there, along with, of course, this automated report sending out to PDF to email on a recurring basis. So next, I'm going to choose my visualizations that I want to put into my dashboard. And you'll see here on the right-hand side is a toolbox, which contains a library of pre-built visualizations. And this is another really big principle of Dexibit, is not only is it a point-and-click self-service analytics platform where any user from front desk to boardroom can come in and create dashboards for themselves, rather than having the analyst in the corner office trying to create dashboards for everybody in the organization. But we have already pre-built all of the different integrations, different data model structures, machine learning models for forecasting, natural language models for interpretation, insights to deep dive into visitor behavior, and visualizations to be able to say, for example, I want to analyze my visitors, have a look at all of these different visualizations that I've got just to look at my visitation. So let's add a couple in there. I'm going to have a look at some basic visualizations. These ones are going to look at my visitation summary, so volumetric style, and then my visitors over time. Let's have a look. We might put in here a couple of others. Let's put in a little heat table here and maybe some averages. So we'll close that away, and here we've got our dashboard starting to form. Now, a couple of things I can do. I can click and drag to move things around, which is always nice. I can expand these visualizations out. If I want to deep dive into something, say I'm looking at a long period of data. So I've just clicked the little edit item here, and maybe I want to look at this year to date here. And that's going to give me a much longer period of data. If I wanted to deep dive, say, on what's happening, this little bump here, I can just quickly zoom in and see I want to inspect various things, and then I can quickly reset. I can, of course, delete any visualization that I've put on. I've only put one of each type, but I might actually put lots of different visualization or lots of the same visualizations on side by side, and maybe play with the filters or the date ranges. So I'm contrasting and comparing. And then I can expand my visualizations as well, at which point I get some nice little summary volumetrics up the top here on the right-hand side. And I'm getting a nicer, larger view of my visualization, of course. But I also get access to the raw data that's gone in behind this visualization. I can download that to CSV if I want to work with it elsewhere, or I can search the data. This isn't too helpful when I'm looking at visitation, because all I'm really doing is sort of looking at dates, for example. But if I had ticketing data that I was working with here, this would be a really handy way to get at exact things that I'm looking to discover in that data set. So coming back to my dashboard, a couple of other things that I can do here, and I can swivel around to get a description of what I'm looking at. And as a dashboard design, I can actually change what this says so that when I share this dashboard out with other people, I can control the text that they're reading here. And then, of course, I can start to filter things down. So with visitation data, it only gets so interesting, really. But let's come in and add something a little bit more exciting, like some ticketing data. And then we'll get an idea of how we can start to filter this. So for a start, I've got my different attributes, like my life cycle of when my ticket was sold, scheduled and redeemed, or scanned. So let's say I wanted to have a look at my tickets that are scheduled to come in. And then I want to have a look at only for different adult types. And then I've only got my general admission. And maybe I wanted to have a look at that by channel, for example. And let's see, maybe I want to look at this. So we're looking at quarter to date. So again, switching over into year to date, you'll see some little captions have started to pop up on my visualization to let my readers know what I'm working with here. And then let's say I actually want to sort of start grouping this up into a weekly basis. And I'd like to come over into the style tab and maybe just change the style of this visualization slightly. And there's all sorts of things I can do here. Like if I wanted to turn some data labels on, I can put some figures on that. That's really useful when I'm sending things off to PDF, because I can't hover over a tooltip on a PDF to inspect something. Or maybe I want to fix the ranges or add some more labels and so forth. And with these filters, my data here in Antarctica is pretty simple, but you can imagine for a lot of visitor attractions, they have thousands of these ticket products and types and channels and so forth. And so you can save these as specific filters. So if you want to look at like all VIPs or all discounted tickets or all events or something like that. So you can create filters which other users will be able to borrow and quickly apply into different visualizations to reuse them. So that's a really quick guide of creating a dashboard. Here with my dashboard, I can now come and share it with others. And I can, of course, give it a name. and I can give it some explanatory text. And then in addition, I can come in and actually put some more text onto my dashboard itself. So I've just added on a text block. And where this is really useful is for telling the story of your data, so that your readers of your dashboard can sort of get the narrative that you're trying to get across with a particular dashboard or report. And you can, of course, update this as you like, as you go along, and lots of different things that you can do, of course, with formatting of this particular block as well. A really nice way to use them is to use them at the front of your dashboard, because that's kind of naturally how people read things. And just for fun, you can put in an emoji. Here we go. So that and you can do this through your dashboard titles as well. It just helps things to stand out and make things a little bit more fun. Data can otherwise be a little bit dry. So it's a really, really quick guide to creating a dashboard with Dexibit. You can see, let's have a flick over to a dashboard that I've created before. And when we get going with lots of different data coming in here, let's give this a moment to load, you can see sort of the depths of how I can pull out lots of different areas to dive into with this data. Here, for example, I'm looking at my ticket product performance between different tickets over time. Here, I'm combining, for example, different metrics together to form a derived metric. So here, for example, I'm looking at my net new member growth. I know that's a lot of a mouthful here, but we're talking about our members, our CRM data, new members that have joined, and then I'm comparing that to perhaps my visitation, so that I can say net members per visit. So the percentage of visitors that are converting into a new membership. And I might be keeping an eye on these lines, say if I've got an exhibition coming up, to see how that affects my member conversion rates, for example, versus my renewals. So that's a really good example of a data metric that's created from two different source systems. So I might be taking my visitation data from my footfall counters, for example, my membership data from a CRM, maybe something like Salesforce. And I can then sort of overlay things as well, of course, so that I can put my visitation against my membership conversion rates as well, which is a really helpful thing to sort of look at things between. So an example of one of those overlays at work, let's come and have a look at per cap. So again, this is a metric created from two different systems. Here I've got my point of sale data revenue, got my visitation data maybe from footfall, and then I have turned that into an average revenue per visit. And then I can plot that back against my visitation. So here I've got average revenue per visit. And you can see here, although my visitation has varied quite wildly in the month of April, that first week of April, it actually made no difference to my per cap. So it doesn't matter how many people I've got on site, I'm kind of making around about the same in my per caps here, between $7 to $7.10. If I was seeing a really big gap here, then I would be digging deeper in my data to see if that correlates with how busy the site is in terms of the transaction rate or the capture rate in the stores or the basket size or the average order value. So lots of interesting areas to start pulling threads depending on what we see. So this is just one of those examples of a typical dashboard that's pulling in lots of different data. And another interesting thing that you can see is that here it's pulling in data from the future and the past as well. So it's pulling in forecasting. So we might have the report on how our prior forecasts have done, forecast versus actual, to help track accuracy and things. And then we might actually make these time periods here to look at data from the future as well. So we might choose like a relative date of like the month remaining or the week remaining or the quarter remaining or whatever, to be able to look at our forecasts out as well. A couple of other things in Dexibit that are really useful to note. Dexibit includes an almanac, which is like a calendar of what's on in and around the location. And we populate this with the basics, things like school holidays, school terms, public holidays, federal holidays, bank holidays, and major exhibitions and events from your location schedule. But you can then also augment this. Either we provide a third-party data feed if you'd like to do that upgrade, or you can enter this material directly into this calendar. And this data is used in a few different ways. First of all, we use it as a feature set in our machine learning, which goes into your forecasting. So generally, the more depth you have in your almanac, the more accurate your forecasts will be. And the second way that we use it is from time to time in different insights to be able to say, for example, the impact of this particular campaign or this school holiday or whatever the case might be on your various data. So for example, in school holiday, maybe per caps go up by such and such. And then the third way that this data is used is it provides a really nice track of institutional knowledge and that sort of track, that metadata of what's happened and when, so that we can go back and see, oh, look, this day sort of fell through the floor on visitation back in 2017. What was that for? Again, oh, that's right. It was from a fire alarm that went off where we evacuated the building, or this is when this particular exhibition might have started, for example. And in here, as well as behind the scenes, you can change the rules, the recognition rules of various things. So that's things like we recognize visitors by this. Is it footfall? Is it tickets? Is there a scaling factor applied? Particular business rules on those tickets, of which ones? Is it when the ticket is scanned or scheduled? How do we treat gift certificates? All of these sorts of things come into it. Same with your revenue, same with your members, same with your exhibitions, your events, and your experiences. So people who do a VR ride, is that counted via a click account versus people who go to an event that's counted through tickets? Maybe people who are visitors get counted through door entries. So you can have lots of different methods and recognition rules involved. And then also behind the scenes here, a couple of other things that you can do. You've got your platform of connections, so we can create new connections, new integrations from various systems of ticketing, CRM, point of sale, all of these sorts of things. And upload data manually or connect to data store if we like. And we can manage things like the hardware, so what the hardware is called. We can manage our goals and targets. And we can also keep track of our locations, our sub-account structures, and our users. So you can see here in Antarctica, my Antarctica Enterprises group has a couple of sub-accounts. So people within those sub-accounts can only see locations within that sub-account. They can only see other users within that sub-account. They can only see data relating to those sub-accounts and dashboards and reports that have been shared within those sub-accounts. So this gives me a lot of control over identity and access management. And you can see here down to my lists of locations, for example. I can come in here and create notes about these particular locations. So where these notes are typically used, this might be something like my data governance, my business rules, like my visitors here are recognized from this. This system is in flux. We're intending on changing our CRM in 2025, whatever the case might be. And this is a really great way, again, of keeping that sort of institutional contextual data that everyone who's interacting with your data should know about that. There should be something written down about it, documentation about it. So this is a great place just to keep that safe and accessible to all. So that's a really quick guide to working with Dexibit. So we do data analytics for visitor attractions to predict and analyze visitor behavior, and dashboards, reports, insights, and forecasts, all backed by this data automation platform with great multi-tenancy, great multi-location management for large portfolios, but equally works wonderfully well for single venue locations. Thanks for riding along with me today. Looking forward to hearing from you. And if you do want to reach out to contact us, if you're a user in app, just hit this little button down at the bottom and we'll be sitting there online ready to chat with you. Or if you aren't a user of Dexibit yet, just hit the same little chat on our website and we'll be in touch.